What's going on, everybody? What's going on? Yes, I am back. I am back. I know you guys haven't seen me in a while, but you know what I say. Put a one in the chat if you can hear me. Put a one in the chat. Today we have a very special guest joining the live. As I told everyone, I'm back on YouTube. You've been seeing me all over Instagram. You've been seeing me in different courthouses from federal court to state court. I even had to go to traffic court for a ticket, but we won't talk about that right now. But I have some interesting topics we're going to discuss today. Tomorrow there are two big cases that are in the news. One involving rapper Tory Lanez and his motion for a new trial, which is taking place in Los Angeles, California, in Department 132 at 10 a.m., I believe. And then in Atlanta, there is a series of motions that will be heard by Judge in the YSL case by Judge Ulysses Glanville. And I have one of the attorneys that will be representing one of the defendants in this interesting indictment from the district attorney Fonnie Willis's office. The attorney I met him during the I guess prelims, but I have an opportunity now to bring him on Sunday. He's busy. He probably was playing golf, and I said, "Listen, put the clubs down. We need to get you up here. We need to talk about this YSL case because there are a lot of people who want to know what's going on." We started with 28 defendants, and I think we down maybe to 14, 12, but he'll give me the exact number. But he has some interesting motions to be that is on the table as well. And without any further ado, and I'm not going to jack his name up, but we're going to bring in attorney Anastacios Manettas. And if I said it wrong, please don't listen. I'm from the Bronx, man. Don't judge me. Let me bring him up here. Listen, let me bring him up here. Where you at? Come on up. Come on up here. What's going on, counselor? What's going on?
It's going good,
Man.
good. Yeah, pretty close to Anastacios Manettas, but that's one of the best first guesses. So.
Once I say it 3 times, it's a tongue twister, by the way.
I know, yeah, it's Greek. So,
well, that'd be a tongue twister. But ladies and gentlemen, make sure you first of all, he can type his name, his Instagram and all that stuff in there while we're on live. But let's first and foremost, this case has started. It seemed like it started almost a year ago. How many months has it been?
Well, I mean, my defendant, Mr. Miles Farley, he was arrested on April 1st of 2022. And then I think Jeffrey Williams and a lot of the others were arrested in May last year. So we're coming up at about a year already. And we've been
already. We don't have one jury selected yet.
Well, right. Yeah, that the jury selection started January 4th of this year. And yeah, we're still in the hardship phase that is pretty much entirely run by the judge. We haven't had so much input yet.
Please explain to our audience what is a hardship phase, because a lot of people don't understand the inner workings of of picking a jury.
Right. I mean, normally how it works is it's very unique to this case, and the judge has decided to do it this way. Normally, you do the hardship and the individual questioning at the same time, but the hardship questions are about whether you have a medical or financial or caretaker hardship, or you have children under 6 years old, or if you're over 70, there's all these kind of rules that sort of automatically get you out. But what's really interesting about this is that I feel like the court, because it refused to sever the case, meaning try people separately or split it up into chunks the way they do federal RICO, has created a real weird situation where it's like people are being asked whether or not it's a financial hardship to set aside 6 to 9 months of their life, 9 to 5, and get paid $25 a day. And I don't know how many people can honestly say that that's not a hardship. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, we did hear. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and yeah, so then normally that's done at the same time as the individual questioning. But right now the judge is just deciding, whether somebody has a hardship or not. And if they don't, they move on to the next phase, which is going to probably start in June. And that's going to be where each of the 14 defense teams for each of their defendants gets to ask the remaining people whatever they want about this questionnaire that they filled out. It has 258 questions in it. And that's going to be pretty interesting. And no one knows how long that's going to take.
And while we're talking about hardships, I don't think the hardships is just limited to potential jurors. As many of us have learned over the last couple of days, that there's some hardships, discussion hardships involving attorneys as well on this case. And while you have taken the case as a pro bono, is that proper?
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Farley, I'm actually friends with his dad, Sam Farley, who's a barber on Cleveland Avenue. And neither Miles nor his dad, Sam, are affiliated with any gangs or crimes or anything like that. And I actually met Sam when I was an Uber driver, public defender, handing out business cards, trying to start my solo practice in 2016. And then he sort of, took a liking to me and what I was trying to do. And he helped me, spread my name through his barbershop and stuff like that. And he's been trimming my beard since 2016. And then sadly, this all happened and I took it on pro bono, one, just because, I'm friends with the family, I'm friends with his dad, but also just to, correct an injustice. And, for me, it's, almost purely personal. And that's why, it's not about money, but for the court appointed lawyers, there's a very interesting issue where apparently, I mean, they can speak on it better, but apparently there's some kind of deal where it was only 7,500 flat rate per case, but there's never been a case that's this long. And then now I think that when they complained, it became 15,000, but even that is not even minimum wage if you spread it out over a year and a half or 2 years or however long this goes. And then that's really unfair because now let's say you're poor and you have a Sixth Amendment right to an attorney, yet you actually have a right to an attorney who's willing to take it on as a personal cause like me, because, who would financially take that on? Even the court appointed attorneys are not doing this for money because, they can make more at minimum wage, working somewhere else. And I think that's unfair to a defendant who doesn't have the means of, maybe Jeffrey Williams or, Diamante Kendricks. If you don't have money, what are you to do? And even if you had a little bit of money, your hands are tied because how do you pay for an attorney to show up for you every day for 2 years? That's tough. So I think what Fani and the judge have done here is they made a situation where you really don't get to pick an attorney and have a fair trial if you're poor, because, you have to rely on a court appointed person making it personal. And that's really not fair. Had they been split up, like, for example, Miles Farley, he's only mentioned in like 7 or 9 of the 191 predicate acts that are part of this supposed, RICO conspiracy. And he's on one murder count that he's definitely going to be found innocent of. Had we had his trial together with maybe the 3 or 4 people who are alleged to be on those counts with him, trial would have been 2 or 3 weeks, and he could have picked, a lot of different attorneys would be willing to do that for some kind of flat rate. But when you make it a 2-year thing, that's not as feasible. So I think these huge RICO cases, when they don't get split up, it's just a flat out Sixth Amendment violation, from the jump.
And we're going to talk about the Sixth Amendment in a minute, but just knowing what I know about how much it costs to defend a criminal case of this magnitude, even you taking the pro bono, I mean, arguably a case like this, it's about 25, 30, maybe $50,000 case to effectively hire investigators and bring in experts and so forth. This is going to get very expensive. So
yeah,
let's get into the Sixth Amendment.
Yeah, I mean, much more than that. I would say a murder case that would take a week would be like $50K for an attorney. And I mean, then when you add in, investigation, experts, murder cases often involve a lot of science, DNA, medical examiner. The state's experts are often completely corrupt. So then you got someone that's a doctor saying, oh, this bullet wound shows this, and it's just flatly not accurate. And now you have to find your own doctor who wants $8,000 per day to pop up. They might want $700 an hour to review stacks of medical information. So yeah, it's really the whole game to get people to take pleas, to get people to admit to things that they didn't do. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? Go into a fair fight with your lawyer having 2 hands tied behind his back? It puts people between a rock and a hard place to make them take a plea, because, our government can't possibly give everyone their civil rights up to a trial. There's just not enough time and money out there.
Well, I'm sure the prosecution knows this. They knows going in, and I'm sure the judge knows this because before he was a judge, he was an attorney, practicing on, as a, I don't know if he's first counsel, second counsel. I don't know how he ascended to being in his role, but he has to know the financial hardship that this trial has created, and hearing attorneys taking a case like this for 7,500. What do they think? 7,500 is not even a. I don't understand that. Even for a public defender, why would you sign up for a case like this and then have to go back to the judge and say, "Listen, I need more money." Like,
right.
And then once the trial actually starts, just think about it.
There's a lot of costs. There's like dry cleaning. There's gas in your car. There's a lot of things. Office supplies. I mean, even like it sounds silly even talking about this kind of thing, but that 7,500 number is silly. So yeah, it's wild. And they know this. And I think that it's a weird, they're alleging this RICO conspiracy, but I think the real conspiracy is the trial itself on the other side, because what they've done is they're trying to bleed us out. They're trying to wear us down. They're trying to get people like me to give up, because we go broke. But I mean, it's just crazy. And then there's the issue of the length of the trial and the denial of bond for all of the defendants. So I think, when Jeffrey Williams and Miles Farley are found innocent in the end, how do they get 3 years of their life back? And so in a way, it allows the government to falsely accuse someone and then punish them without any evidence. And then, Miles Farley is going to be found not guilty. And then they'll be like, oh, we lost. But now they just sent a young man to jail for 3 years for something he didn't do when he's a HBCU graduate with no criminal history and an LLC company that was just on the cusp of, being profitable when Fani, sucked him into all this.
So now let's talk about your motions, and let's talk about, the fair trial aspect. It's not even starting out fair. If you outside looking in, this doesn't even look like it's like David and Goliath. You guys are going in, hoping the judge. I mean, the bond issues is one thing, and let's talk about how many defendants are now on this case versus when it started.
Right. I mean, really, every criminal defendant in this country is David versus Goliath to begin with. But then on this case, it's like, David versus 5 Goliaths. But we're still going to win, and it's just tough. I mean, bond. I think things have changed. That's one of my motions for tomorrow is bond. It's already been denied 3 times. I've already told the judge about how Mr. Miles Farley was the creator of this clothing brand, Make America Slime Again, and how whatever YSL is, they were never anything besides, customers and promoters for him. And he was getting his proximity to anybody he could for social media and, exposure and music videos. Even on his Instagram page for Make America Slime Again, there's T.I. and Young Thug and Future all wearing, his Make America Slime Again hat. And yet that's kind of ignored by Fani. It's just clearly not explicitly related to the record label Young Stoner Life at all. It was just a business relationship and associations and friendships. So yeah, it's crazy. And the judge knew all that and he still denied it. And now what I want to argue is that things have changed now. We didn't know a trial was going to go on this long. But the biggest thing I think has changed to show how fake the state is when they say things in court. For example, you remember last year, they're talking about Sergio Kitchens threatening people. He's too dangerous to be out on bond. He's in a command position. This is an organization. And then, he says, yes, ma'am, to a couple of questions. And now he's free. So you really didn't believe he was dangerous, right? And I'm all right coming out with this. Miles Farley, who's facing a murder count with a mandatory life sentence, was also offered to be out on probation months ago if he would have made some proffers and falsely said that, YSL is a gang. And he's a principled person. I admire him. It's a privilege to represent him because, I don't know if I would be as strong as him. I don't know if I could stand as tall as him. He's just not going to admit to something that's not true and that he didn't do. And he's not going to say false things about anyone else just to get out of trouble.
So you're telling me your client was offered a get out of free card and he declined it because it wasn't he couldn't make those assertions that the government wanted him to make. The
Right,
prosecution
right.
wanted him
Fani
to make.
wanted to exactly, yeah. Fani wanted him to say things that weren't true, and basically wanted him to take a plea, and he doesn't want to do that. He has a young infant son that's going to grow up, and Google him, and he's trying to lead by example, and he's just not going to admit something he didn't do.
Okay, all right. So this is whew. And the judge is the judge aware of these plea offers? Is it something that you guys sidebar to discuss, or is it?
Yeah, he's not aware of the offers, but he's certainly aware of the resolutions done by other defendants, like YSL Lee, who is the creator of the stage name Slime Life Shorty, and Sergio Kitchens, who's the creator of the persona Gunna. They took a plea right in front of him and raised their hand and took an oath and answered those questions. So he very well knows. So then he should know that, really Gunna isn't as dangerous as they tried to say at first when they were denying his bond. But now that he said what you wanted him to say, he's walking around free. But before, he's in a command position and he's too dangerous to be free. So that means you really don't think he's dangerous if you're going to let him out like that, unless you don't care about the safety of the community, which I know isn't true. So I think, people like Sergio Kitchens and Miles Farley were charged on purpose as they're being innocent, and their bond was denied and opposed so that they could be held hostage and that Fani Willis could extract false testimony from them. I mean, by now, I've been saying that from the beginning because I know Miles, but by now I think the judge and everyone in the community should be able to see that. I mean, why would they offer people probation if they really thought they were so dangerous? And all this time has gone by and there has been no tampering or any misconduct. So, what by now, how are we really going to say that Miles Farley is too dangerous to be out on bond when had he just said these lies that you wanted him to say, then he would be out? It's just, I mean, those two things will never add up.
Well, I don't know if everyone requested bond, because is it still the case where some of the defendants don't have lawyers yet?
No, the lawyers. Yeah, there were several defendants who either just didn't have an attorney of their choosing or couldn't hire an attorney. And then some of those defendants were appointed an attorney and others weren't. And then because the judge was insisting on starting this, which I'm grateful for, so we can speed up and, free Miles, he decided that, well, we're just going to have those people severed from the case. So what happened was, I think it was six defendants who didn't have court-appointed attorneys in time are now not on the case, but they're going to be theoretically tried after this is done.
By the same judge?
Yes. I mean, presumably, I don't know. I'm not involved in that. I know the court system can move things around. He's the presiding judge. He sets a lot of the rules. So I don't know which judge will be trying the case after this. Well. Yeah, he's the chief judge of Fulton County. And then I guess that'll be up to Fani about when this is all done. Does she want to run it back with these other people or not? So
did you answer my question? How many defendants are there left now standing?
Not yet, but yeah, there was 14. There started with 28. 8 took a plea deal. 6 got severed for not having an attorney, and now we're down to 14. But that just makes me think about too, for those people that couldn't afford an attorney, were not court appointed an attorney, which is their right, and now they don't have a bond either. So they have to wait all this time in Fulton County Jail, which has been in the media for a lot of negative things lately. And they got to be in there throughout this whole trial and then another one. And if you're found not guilty, how unfair is that? We're supposed to be presumed innocent, and that's exactly why.
Let's talk Speedy Trial, Sixth Amendment for those, even just those that have been severed. They do have a constitutional right to have a speedy trial. How's that weighed?
Right. I mean, we didn't have that constitutional right until January of this year because Fulton County had suspended it, and it's just now been reinstated. And they needed to have asserted that right at a certain time, otherwise it's waived. But yeah, the Sixth Amendment guarantees you an attorney, whether you can afford one or not, and a speedy trial if you request it, and a right to confront all the evidence against you and to be presumed innocent and to have a trial.
It seems like some lapse in things happening. I don't know why. It seems like this. I mean, and what is a speedy trial? Someone say, well, is a speedy trial 3 years, or is it 6 years, or is it six
Yeah, I mean,
months?
yeah,
And I guess
I'm
that's
almost
local rules.
yeah, I'm almost sad that I'm not surprised because it's almost like, welcome to the life of representing the accused. But what a speedy trial really means, it's not about the speed of the trial, it's about when it starts. So the actual rule in the statute is you have, I'll back up. Court is split up into terms. Every county has different length of terms. So for example, like in Clayton County, the terms of court are 2 months each. So it'll be like January, February, March, April. So the rule is that you need to file your speedy trial demand in the term that the case was indicted in or the next term. And then once you file it, the state has 2 terms to start your trial. And that's what speedy trial means. It doesn't mean the length of the trial. So technically, as unfair as it is, Miles Farley has been granted a speedy trial because we started technically on January 4th. So if I say, where's my speedy trial? The government says, here it is. We started January 4th. There's no right to have your trial be a certain length. It's when they start it.
Okay, so it's not when the indictment occurred, but when the term started.
Yeah, you
From the
have
point of
right. The government has the term that you file it in and the next term to try you. And if they
right.
don't try you within that time, you can file a plea and bar and the case would be dismissed.
I don't know how much you can talk about his particular case. Um, for those who don't know, what type of connection is the prosecution alleging with Mr. Farley and this whole uh, gang situation? Are they saying that he was in the area, not because he had the clothing line? If having a clothing line, in my opinion, this is the question and statement. Having a clothing line, he to me took took advantage of this big record label. They didn't decide they wanted to trademark. He decided to have a name. Does he own the name to that?
Yeah, no,
line?
like I said, yeah, he's an HBCU graduate. He ironically went to Miles College in Alabama. He got a degree in business administration and then returned to the Cleveland Avenue area where he's actually born and raised. And you bring up an interesting issue. They do talk about, oh, he's hanging around on Cleveland. He's hanging around on Cleveland. Well, the people that live there are hanging around Cleveland. It's not that he's hanging out, he's living there. So that's just another prejudicial thing. The government is trying to criminalize all the people that live in a certain area, and it's crazy. So, I mean, yeah. And so what's interesting too is that he is the creator of this clothing line, Make America Slime Again. What really happened is him and this Jewish American kid from California had this idea to make this Trump trucker hat. And instead of saying Make America Great Again, it said Make America Slime Again. And they go to a meet and greet and they meet Lil Keed, rest in peace. And he takes a liking to the hat. And then different guys from the record label are getting different clothing. And then that's when Miles has the idea in the summer of 2020 to incorporate everything as a clothing line. And then he starts making these custom made pieces for people, just doing all that. And he's actually childhood friends with One E Lee, Slime Life Shorty. And then when Slime Life Shorty's emerging, Alamo Records actually pays Miles Farley $2,000 a month to be the handler for One E Lee. And this, in Miles's just brilliant mind, that's why I admire him so much, his brilliant business entrepreneur mind, he uses that personal assistant role and that $2,000 a month to make the clothes and then have Slime Life Shorty wear them in some of the videos and have them posted in whatever social media he can, whether it's Future, Young Thug, T.I., Slime Life Shorty, and so that's what really happened. Yeah, and then the state's ignorance is really coming out because in the RICO count itself, they accuse him of being part of YSL just because he's wearing clothing that says slime on it. Like he has a piece that has slime or die. So it's always just a play on words where he's putting the word slime into other things. So he has this shirt, slime or die. But in the RICO conspiracy count, they only accuse him of wearing the stuff. They don't even know that he was making it. And so it just shows how they really jump to conclusions and they're only looking at things, skin deep, surface level. Because now, I mean, they didn't even know that he was the creator of this clothing. So that, what else did they not know? They really just had tunnel vision and jumped to conclusions. And so that's what they're accusing him of. Basically, RICO, it's pretty unfair. RICO, in my opinion, was made because the government couldn't prosecute, Italian American organized criminals. And so to get around certain due process rules, our legislatures just made something called RICO so that then they could get around due process. For example, you can actually be guilty even if you don't commit a crime. If you do a non-criminal act that furthers the interests of a criminal organization, you're guilty of RICO.
Well,
so basically,
it was established.
So they're basically saying,
right.
So they're basically saying, oh, if you got an ESPN tattoo or a rock tattoo and you show it off in social media, or you wear a shirt that has the word slime in it, then you're promoting this supposed gang called Young Slime Life. And because you're promoting the interests of that supposed criminal organization, you are now guilty of RICO. So they have him for that because, he's in Slime Life Shorty's videos, wearing the slime hat, stuff like that. But then it thickens a little bit with him because he's also straight up charged with murder as being a party to a murder. But that count is so ridiculous. It's hard to even take it seriously. The state to this day has not said how he supposedly helped in that murder. And the jury will be instructed by the judge that association and the presence at a scene is not guilt. So that's a weak murder case to begin with. But just because he's present nearby where this guy ends up found dead, they say he's guilty of murder. Because in Georgia, which is unfair, if you encourage or assist or anything in any way, you're guilty of murder. Like, you could lend someone your car and they go kill someone. If you lent it to them and knew they were going to do that with it, then you could be guilty of murder. And what Miles, what I can say about Miles is that he's in the back seat of a car that's trailing another car that supposedly does a drive-by, and the person in that car has a very strong defense for that murder. So it's a weak murder case to begin with, and then he's sucked into it because he's in the back seat of a car that's following that car.
So he's not even in the car that is allegedly part of the murder. He's in the car following it.
Right, and the state to this day, even when I negotiated with Fani, to this day, no one can articulate to me how if that was a murder, how did he assist in it? Did he buy the gas for the car? Did he help point out the person? Was he there for backup? Did he put an address in the GPS? What did this person supposedly do that assisted this supposed murder? They haven't even said that. And now I got to wait 2 years.
Let me ask you a question. Some people hear that and say, well, is it a coincidence that he is in the area? Because they're going to look at coincidence. Is it a coincidence that he's behind a car that is accused of committing a murder, but he's behind in another car, but he's not in that car? Because they can say, hey, this guy was the backup car.
Well, they're not even saying that. Yeah, I mean, they could try to say that and it won't be true and it'll be shown to be false at trial, but they're not even trying to say that. And that's exactly why we're presumed innocent, because there are coincidences. Right. I mean, I had a weird situation one time where I was at like a country club kind of thing with my uncle, and I didn't know that I was in the children's bathroom for the men, and I just real quick was changing my bathing suit, and then I walked out, and then this young kid walked in, and I thought to myself, what the heck? I don't know if that was me, but I kept thinking, like, wow, what a coincidence. What if that kid had come in 30 seconds earlier and then runs to his mom and says, hey, there's this naked guy, took his pants off in front of me. Like, there are.
I accidentally went to the ladies' room one time, and I don't want people to take that clip and run with it, but that happened to me one time. Exactly. Then I realized I'm hearing all these ladies in it. I was scared to come out the bathroom.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's why you need to be innocent till proven guilty, and you need to have the government prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty. And the burden's on them, and you have no burden, and you're presumed innocent all the way up until the state overcomes that burden. So, I mean, it's a great system on paper, but it doesn't always play out that way in real life, sadly, especially when you have things all over social media and rumors and false narratives.
So let's talk about the media coverage to this trial and how, I don't know, do you feel that the media has already convicted your client and the others? Well, I know you're concerned about your client, but do you think that the media has played a role in putting negative attention towards this case? And I ask this question because Rico and people run with the most salacious part of the story, and your client's a part of it. I know it has to be wearing on you because you gotta fight the case in the courtroom, and then you have to obviously come and talk to people like myself and let us know where your client's at and what type of person he is.
Right. And then there's these shackles on us where we're not allowed to speak on the evidence in discovery, even though the evidence in discovery shows that Miles Farley is innocent. And then you have Fonnie and other people doing sit-down interviews with Mark Winnie in her office. So that's yet another.
Oh, well, hold on. We ain't gonna get into Mark because I already have an issue with Mark.
All right,
I have an issue with Mark having access to her like that. Like, Fonnie, you know what I told you.
That's
Mark,
for the next episode.
Mark has a direct link to you, Fonnie. Talk to hip hop media. And she's gonna look at this already.
Yeah, and what I find unfair about all this too is that I don't know how much we can trust people to not be exposed to this, or like even by accident. Because I remember like times back in the day when I would be like recording a sports game on a VHS, and then you're telling everybody, don't tell me who won, but then somehow it gets spoiled, or people spoil the ends of movies or video games. So I don't know. I'm kind of scared that over a year and a half of trial, let's say some guy's on the YSL case as a juror and his son's out there on social media all day. Like, you really think there's not going to be some accidental, information that's given to him or something like that? Or is a juror going to open up their incognito tab in the middle of the night and type in Young Thug because they never heard of him before and see who knows what is falsely out there online? So I don't know. Yeah, it's tough, but I do have faith that the jurors will do their duty and not look at things. But as it is now, I don't think the judge is intending to sequester them and, take their phones and keep them in a hotel for the whole trial, which would be ideal.
For that?
Exactly. That's the other issue of this whole thing that makes it kind of fake to me is if you're supposedly so concerned about safety in the community, why would you spend millions and millions of dollars on a wrongful allegation and someone like Mars Farley when you could have given that to counselors, therapists, group homes, DFACs, homeless shelters, drug addiction clinics, contraception, sexual education, stuff like that? I mean, if we could run this back and take all the money from this RICO case and put it to stuff like that, that would have an actual impact. And yet we're doing all this for nothing in the end.
What do you think this case is going to cost the people of Fulton County?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've been asked it before, and I'm very curious. I'm that's not my expertise, but I'm excited for some journalists to do an open records request, because there's a caravan of cars showing up to the courthouse every day to bring the defendants. They're brought almost one by one, I think, in deputies' vehicles. There's many officers in the courtroom every day. There's the court reporter, the jury staff, the judge's staff, the judge, the court-appointed attorneys, although that's not a big part of the millions of dollars, because out of the millions, only $15K gets to go to literally the most important people of the whole thing. So I don't know how much it's going to cost, but it's definitely millions. So, we'll see in the end. If it's as far as Miles,
I'm
it's not
interested in seeing those numbers and open those books, because it sounds like a lot of job security for a lot of different people.
Right.
Then you have these other cases that are going on. It's just I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
We have to look into that. So when do you think this case will actually go to trial?
We don't know, because the judge hasn't yet said how many jury strikes we're going to get, and he hasn't said how many alternate jurors there will be. So the way it really works with the selection, because I do want to correct that false thing out there. When people say, "Oh, a single juror hasn't been seated," that's not how it works. You don't select the jury till after all the examination is done, and it's actually not a selection; it's a deselection. So theoretically, let's say 50 people are qualified, and we need to pick 12. What you do is you start at number 1, and then you look at the state, and the state says acceptable or not. And then if they say acceptable, you go to the defense and say acceptable or not. and each side normally has 9 people they could kick off for no reason. And you go through that 1 through 50, and each side gets to use their 9 strikes, and whoever's left over is the jury. But we don't know if we're going to get 9, and we don't know how many jurors we have to qualify.
We're not in voir dire stage yet.
No, it's voir dire. Yeah. Voir dire. Well, that's the thing, is this is unique. There's not supposed to be stages. Normally, it's just, okay, do you have a hardship? No. Okay, lawyers, ask your individual questions. Okay, can you be fair and impartial? Yes. Okay, you're qualified. You're in the batch. And then you have a certain number in mind of how many people you need to have qualified to do the pick. So for example, let's say you need 12 jurors, and normally there's like 1 or 2 alternates. If there was 2 alternates, so you need 12 jurors, 2 alternates, and then you need to account for what if each side used all of their strikes. So a normal trial with 2 alternates would be 12 plus 2 plus 9 plus 9, so that you can make sure that if both sides use all their strikes, you still have enough people. And in this case, we don't know how many alternates there will be. There should be a lot. I mean, let's say there's 6 alternates. That's a bit scary, because if we run out of alternates, then we'd have to start over. And then basically what's happening is, over the year and a half, the alternate is there for if a juror, knock on wood, passes away or disappears or has a medical issue. I had a murder trial in Clayton where a juror just started having a panic attack and had to be carted out on a stretcher. And that's when, we continued on, because there was an alternate there. And the alternates don't get to know they're an alternate, but they watch the whole thing, and then they're secluded at the end to jump in. So because we don't know how many alternates they're going to be, we don't know how many jurors we need to qualify before we start the picking. And then we also need to know how many strikes each side gets. So let's say there's 6 alternates and 28 strikes for each side. We need 12 plus 6 plus 28 plus 28. And that's, whatever that, I'm not doing the mental math, but, like, let's say we need 80 to 100 qualified jurors after we get through this hardship phase, and we have, 900 people that survived and don't have a hardship, even though to me that's sort of theoretically impossible. We're going to, out of those 900 or so, or whatever it is that we're going to have in June at the end of the hardship phase, now we do individual examinations for people about, like, are you prejudiced? Are you racist? Have you seen this in the media? Have you made up your mind already? Do you have some religious belief that makes you uncomfortable about this? Whatever it is, the people that survive that part are going to be ones that are possibly picked if they don't get deselected by one of the sides. So it's just impossible to answer that question, because we don't know how many alternates and we don't know how many strikes. So I don't know, but we'll be done with the hardship phase sometime, I think, in June, because what we've been doing is bringing in like 200-300 people at a time. They watch this 4-hour video where the judge reads the indictment, and then they come in and they're examined for hardship by the judge. So on April 28th, we're going to start a new batch. And then on May 19th, we're going to start the last batch. And then, so if it's going the way it's been going, it should be like the middle of June when the hardship phase is over. And then we start the individual examinations. And then once we have enough qualified jurors, we do the picking, and then we start. So I just have no idea. I mean, could be fall, could be winter, could be January.
You have motions that will be heard tomorrow, correct? Your motions.
Yes, I have some sort of technical motions about some police officers possibly illegally, entering a home, a statement that's not really incriminating, but in my opinion was obtained illegally. That, I just want that on principle part of the record. But yeah, that's what that is. There's a very interesting motion, though, that applies to all the defendants that I believe Mr. Steele, who represents Mr. Williams, is going to argue, where there's a lot of acts in the RICO conspiracy, supposedly, that have already been resolved. So, like, let's say a guy pleaded guilty to murder, and now Fani wants to say that murder was part of supposedly a criminal organization. That's actually in the indictment. And under double jeopardy, you're not supposed to be punished twice for things. So it's a little unfair to, punish this guy for a murder and then punish him again, supposedly because you want to say that murder was part of, some kind of organization. And that makes it unfair to the defendants, because the whole reason you have double jeopardy is so that you can advise the defendant about whether to take a plea or not. So, for example, let's say a guy is accused of shoplifting. Okay, do you want to plead guilty or not? I don't know. Am I getting probation? Okay, is this going to be over when I plead guilty? Now, as an attorney with this RICO stuff that's unfair, I don't know. And so maybe, let's say you plead guilty to the shoplifting, even though you didn't do it, just to get out on probation because you can't afford your bond or whatever. But now they say that shoplifting was part of some RICO conspiracy because you supposedly stole the phone to supposedly go give it to some supposed gang member. And now you're facing 5 to 20, and you admitted it in the past falsely, like a lot of people do just to get out. That's how our system works. But now if you could have a time machine and go back, you'd be like, well, no, I didn't do that because you didn't know that was going to expose you to this
Right.
RICO stuff. So that's why we have double jeopardy. And so RICO on its face is a violation of double jeopardy, which is one of the foundational principles of the system, supposedly.
And in a case like California, where they have 3 strikes, double jeopardy is very big.
Well,
3
right.
strikes.
I mean, yeah,
you
double
have
jeopardy
life.
is supposed to stop the state from punishing you for something twice. And so,
Right.
yeah, it's really unfair. And here in Georgia, with a lot of stuff and our recidivist statute, which is such a other thing to get into one day, it's really like a 2 strikes type of situation. So, yeah, Georgia's brutal.
Well, I mean, the most logical thing to do would be to negotiate a resolution, because this could save the taxpayers a lot, and they're going to remember this at the polls. And ultimately, if resources are being taken away from things that really needs to be dealt with, and it's going to impact. I'm not saying that they're not going to vote for the district attorney again. But
yeah. Well, I'm curious about something like I've seen stuff in local media about how there's been this drop in crime, and Fani's out there attributing it to her stance on gangs. But as a criminal defense attorney and as a Georgia resident, I haven't noticed a drop in crime. So I got to wonder, who's doing the counting and how are they doing the counting and why are they doing the counting and can we trust it?
And who's reporting the story?
Right. Right. But I appreciate you a lot. Helping me get the truth out there, because there's a lot of untruth.
Yeah, is it definitely? I'm waiting until it gets a little closer, because I just can't sit there and go through these hardships, because it's not really the meat and potatoes of the case for me. I will be in the courtroom once we get over this hump here, because we don't know. We may be down by the time it goes to trial, maybe down to Mr. Williams, Mr. Still's fighting pretty hard, and he's trying to
Farley, yeah. If unless it gets dismissed, Mr. Farley's fighting this to the end, and no matter what happens to me personally or financially, I'm never going to give up either. So, we're going to be there till the end, and I know Mr. Steele is the same way, and so are all the other attorneys.
Well, is there a GoFundMe account for this? Like, how are you guys raising the funds? I know you had that funds for this to fight this. The family doing something?
Yeah, no. I mean, we don't really need funds. Yeah, we just need my suits, my computer, some office supplies, my mind. That's it. But I mean, and that's why I'm doubling down. Yeah, I'm taking it even more personal, because I know that they're trying to wear us down. So, I just don't want to let them do that, and they're not going to be able to do that.
Let me. This is a question I had to ask you, and I know you didn't represent him. Rapper Gunna, does he have to come back in court at some point and repeat this at a trial? Or is it something that?
No, yeah. I mean, yeah, I gotta tip my head in some sense to Fani, because she is borderline genius for that. He made a plea deal where it's under Alford v. North Carolina, which means you're not admitting any guilt. You're just saying that I want to make a plea so that I can avoid trial, because at trial, I don't want to trust 12 random people to make this decision when they could convict me. So I'd rather make a safe bet and take this deal. And so that's what he did, an Alford plea. And importantly, he never agreed to actually testify during trial. But then
So he didn't snitch.
I mean, I
No, I'm
won't.
just saying people.
I mean,
That's the
I'll
thing.
just say exactly. Yeah, I'll say exactly what the agreement was. The agreement was that I will not testify at trial. I will not say that I did anything wrong or that anyone else did anything wrong, but I'm going to answer these series of questions. So that's
Okay.
technically not cooperation with the government, but it gets complicated when that gets put on blast to 30 million people all over the world. And now every single person that I meet in my personal life knows about it and has seen it. And so now, how many of these potential jurors have seen it? And that's where the individual phase is going to get crazy, because what if every single person comes in there saying, I saw the Gunna thing on social media and now I believe Mr. Williams is guilty and I can't be fair anymore? I mean, so that's why the length of the individual phase is totally unpredictable. It's just another reason.
Counselor, you have a lot of work ahead of you, and I commend you for just the fact that you're taking this at your expense, you know, and I know that all these defendants are innocent until proven guilty, and they all have the right to have a good defense, a
Right.
good good defense, and
As we all do, right? As we all
yeah,
do. And I'm actually, yeah, I don't consider it a burden at all. I consider it a privilege. And what I'm doing is I'm still fighting my other cases, beating my other cases, resolving them by going elsewhere, and then having colleagues who are also part of the cause and share my belief in Mr. Farley's innocence. They're sitting with Mr. Farley for a few days at a time here and there while I go, fight my
okay,
other stuff. So
okay,
yeah,
well,
we're
that's
making it
good.
work. Manettas laws,
So
carrying on.
how's your client doing? How's he doing? He's sitting in jail,
Yeah,
presumably innocent,
right,
and this is a lot on it, and a college graduate.
right. He's presumably innocent. He's actually innocent. He's a college graduate. He's a LLC entrepreneur founder, and he has no criminal history whatsoever. And he's in Fulton County Jail, which has now become this like Rikers Island style environment of stabbings, bed bugs, contraband. Just it's crazy. And so yeah, he's being punished for something he didn't do. And I admire him. I mean, I can't say he's doing amazing. No one in there is, but
Right.
I admire him. He's tough. He's keeping his head held high. He's doing his best not to allow himself to be punished any more than he is, by just staying strong and fighting through this. And I think that's exactly where Fani and the state thought that there's not anyone, even an innocent person, would go through something like this. But she just picked the right one of Mr. Farley, and then he picked the right one for me to represent him.
I would definitely agree with you, because this just the financial hardship that these other attorneys are dealing with. I mean, let's just see how this thing plays out. Let's see how it plays out.
Right.
Sir, I thank you for coming on at last. With short notice. Again, you definitely have a platform here to discuss the case until the judge issues a gag order.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he'd have to do it to both sides. So let's see.
Yeah, that part. That part. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can follow the turn. He has those information and he figured that out. I came back. I went, oh, he put that there. You can
Yeah.
follow him on his social. And listen, I mean, if you need a good criminal defense attorney, go check him out. Is that your phone? My phone. Oh, I'm sorry. We have someone else trying to get on.
Okay.
But counselor, I appreciate you. Um, we're gonna talk soon, and I thank you for being a part of this show this evening.
All right. And I thank you for allowing me on, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Take care now. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. He's dropped some serious jewels, and for those people that were saying Gunner was telling, Gunner wasn't telling. He doesn't even have to go in and testify against anyone. Um, so I think that was something that wasn't clear, but hopefully this is shared and people will, you know, Give the young man an opportunity. Someone say he sure did. Oh no, Nettie, I don't know. I don't know if you're saying he didn't snitch at all. He did do an Alfred plea. Google Alfred plea, and that way you'll know pretty much. Don't go nowhere. Don't go nowhere. Don't go nowhere. I'm about to end this. Make sure you guys go ahead and look up the word Alfred, look at Alfred please, and see how this, how that, how that works for people taking plea deals. Until next time, I am Dennis Byron, and we're going to take this thing we'll see you guys on the next live, which will be tomorrow, talking about Tory Lanez and his hearing, and see what the judge decided in that, because that goes down tomorrow morning as well. I'll be reporting live from one of the courtrooms. I can't tell you which one yet. I haven't decided, but I still have time. Until next time, I'm out.